Hello, everyone, and welcome to this exclusive masterclass brought to you by Delali. Over the past 15 years, I've had the opportunity of working with a number of businesses, particularly in the fashion space. One thing that majority of them have struggled with is how do I set the right price for my product or service? This masterclass will focus on the art and science of pricing and how best to apply it to your business. My name is Ibrahim and welcome. Also, what you'll get in this masterclass is a free template to use for your business and other offers that we have from Delali. So good luck and may your businesses be profitable. Pricing is more than just numbers. It's about the value you provide and the perception you create. It is important that you get your pricing right as quickly as possible. Here's an interesting fact. You need to test your pricing before reaching the right price point for your business or service. In the fashion business, striking the right balance between cost, value, and price is an art. Now, let's break down some key terms. Cost, the total expense to produce and deliver your product. Price, the amount your customer pays for the product. Value, the perception of the benefit in the eyes of your customer. An appropriate pricing strategy propels profitability and growth. Yet, many fashion entrepreneurs struggle with setting the prices that cover cost, beat competition, and still appeal to customers. We have an exciting journey ahead, so let's gear up as we move to understanding the cost involved in the fashion business in our next video. Welcome to this module about cost. In this segment, we will not just discuss, but we'll walk through costs associated with running a fashion business. We'll be using a fictitious brand called Style Savvy to illustrate the process practically. Meet Style Savvy, a budding fashion brand with a passion for trendy clothing. As the owner of Style Savvy, our first task is to understand the cost involved in bringing our designs to life. Let's break down the cost into three main categories. You'll have the capital cost, operational cost, as well as material cost. The capital cost has to do with assets. Operational costs are the expenses like rent, utilities, salaries for artisans, wages, who bring our creations to life. And finally, the material cost. These are the expenses for fabrics, and all the other raw materials for production. Now it's time to get practical. Let's dive into a spreadsheet and look at how things are going to work to come up with the total cost of production for one of Savvy Styles items. So welcome to this spreadsheet where we're going to break down the different costs. We're starting with the capital cost, which is here. Capital cost consists of different equipment that you may have. These include, things like sewing machines, furniture, laptops, phones, and all those things that are assets to the company, that are tangible assets. So I'm going to start one now. Let's say a sewing machine. And for the purposes of this exercise, we are using the US dollar as our default currency. So let's say sewing machine. Let's say a sewing machine is $250. How many are we buying? Let's say we're starting with 3. The total cost will be equal to this multiplied by this. And this is how you see the total cost, which is $750. I'm going to take a second to fill out the rest and come back to you. Okay, so I'm back and you can see that we've captured all the cost here for everything, and at the bottom here you see that the total cost of the business is going to be roughly about the total cost, the capital expenses that we're incurring is about $4,000 for everything. Now I'm going to jump to the operating expenses and we'll go through that in a second. So for operating expenses, you see that I have office rent, staff salaries, and everything. The whole idea of operating expenses are recurring expenses that happen every month or over a period of time that are always recurring. Now you see that the calculation is slightly different because you have unit cost, number, the duration in months, and total. So for example, let's say my rent is, let's say $250, no, rather $150 a month. I'm paying it at one location for a duration of how long? Let's say 12 months. So I'll multiply everything, this multiplied by this, multiplied by this. So it's going to give me 1,800, and I'll fill out the rest and come back to you. Now that we filled everything out, we can see the total cost of our operating expenses. You'll notice that I have a one line item for salaries. This is to gives you a total figure of how much the salaries are. We can jump into another class where we can break this down further, but today's exercise is all about pricing. So we're going to jump to that. Finally, you see that I've made provision for contingencies, which is about 10%. So our total cost of operating, it's about $53,000 a year. Now on production cost, what we're going to do is for Savvy Style, we want to sew this type of shirt. For us to sew this kind of shirt, we need to know what are the raw material costs. These are costs that are not recurring. These are costs that are associated with the production only. So they can also be seen as variable costs, but rather than jump into the jargon, here's what it is. We'll find out all the materials that we need to sew one shirt. Once we know what that cost is, then we can factor in all other costs. So for example, the cost may be material, maybe things like fabric and all other items, which I'll fill out now. We have completed this. We know what the cost of making one item is, from fabric, thread, label, packaging, sewing. There may be one or two things that are missing here, but the whole idea is to get a general picture of what it costs to make one item. So the total cost here we can see is $13.15 per shirt. Great. So we've captured the very important part of cost, because we now know what our operating cost is. We also know what our production cost is for one item. With these, we can easily start to build up our pricing for our product. However, we're going to stop here on costs and jump into the next part of the training, which has to do with market research. The previous lesson, we learned about how to come up with our costs, and now we need to go deeper into the market. To help us with our pricing, we need to understand what our competitors are doing. That way, it will give us a rough idea of how best to come up with the ideal price for our product. For us to start, we would need to identify who our customer is. By identifying our customer, it makes it a lot easier to know where to look in terms of competition. So for example, Savvy Style, let's assume that Savvy Style is a men's clothing wear which makes bespoke custom shirts for men. That is our market. So who will use Savvy Style? It will be most likely men, the age of maybe 24 to 40. They're working class, based in urban areas in our municipality or the area where we are situated. Most of them, their buying styles are they buy in person at stores, and they also do a lot of buying online. Okay, so we are back and we have a number of competitors that we need to look at. I have taken some imaginary competitors to sort of show us how we do our research. We have a list of 5 here, and I'll show you. Since we've already defined our market of what type of clothes we're selling, we can look at different products. So for example, I'll start with this. Now, this is a very popular website, and they sell men's shirts in different sizes and things like that. Maybe a shirt that we sell are denim jackets or something like that. I can get the price of that product and put it into our spreadsheet so that we can sort of compare. There are some other products here. Like I said, there are some men's shirts. I'm focusing on men's shirts right now, and you see the different products and prices. That way I can sort of capture all this information into the spreadsheet, like I said, over here. So I can put in the price, the outlet, how people are buying or how they are selling their products, whether it's online, offline, or both. So I'm going to take a very quick summary, or I'm going to capture all the information into here and share with you guys. You can see that we have the prices here showing that, okay, a long sleeve shirt from competitor A is this amount, and competitor B, a formal shirt, costs $35. on and on like that. I would sort of expand this to other items that are similar to my own product and also put it here. Good. So I have everything from t-shirts to casual kaftans, formal kaftans, and everything. I now have an idea of what my competitors are charging or billing for their products. I can also see how they are selling their products. As you can see, some of them are selling online and in store, or just in store, or just online. With this, I have enough information to help guide me in terms of when setting my own prices. Through thorough market research, we are not just setting our prices blindly by setting them so high or too low. We understand what the competitors are charging for their products and services, which will help guide us in setting our own prices. Now that we are gradually connecting the dots together, let's move to the final part to help Style Savvy set the right price for its products and services. Welcome to the fourth module, which is about setting the prices. This is where it gets super interesting. Armed with all the costs that we have, as well as competitor pricing, we are going to dive into creating our own price, which will enable us to be profitable and continue to grow. So let's dive in. There are several pricing strategies you could adopt, and the right one for Style Savvy will hinge on our cost, market positioning, and brand identity. Here are a few strategies. Cost plus pricing. This is where we mark up our cost of production by a certain percentage to arrive at our selling price. Competitive pricing. Setting our prices based on what competitors are charging for similar products. Value-based pricing. Pricing of our products based on the perceived value to our customers. For Style Savvy, let's contemplate a hybrid strategy of cost plus pricing and competitive pricing. This approach ensures we cover our cost while staying competitive in the market. Great. Now we are here, we can see that we have our cost pricing as well as market research on prices of competitor products. This is the Savvy Style shirt that we are going to use for this session. So we already know that the cost of production is 13.15. So I'm going to put in the cost here. I'm going to set the markup percentage, set up the markup, and set the selling price. Let me do that now. So let's say we set a markup of 20%. The markup is going to be this multiplied by this. That is this. So the selling price will be equal to this plus this. So you can see that selling price will be 15.78. We can mark up, usually I'll say mark up by 50 or 55% or so. So your markup price is about 19.37. Now, if we should come to the competitor section, we can see that we have an idea of the pricing. We can say, okay, let's find out the average price of this product. So we can take this and say average of all these prices, right? That means the average price is 32. This is a very important point that we should mark. So looking at our pricing, you can see that we're 19.3. So based on competitors in the market, we are slightly or significantly lower. So we can increase maybe our markup by 70% to around 22 or even more. So it all depends on what we want to do. But the most important thing is that our product is as competitive in terms of pricing, meaning that we have significant advantage. Now you can see that we have a selling price and a markup of about 70% to get the product to sell at around $22 per shirt. Mind you, this is just the first part of our pricing, but at least we now have an idea of our pricing. There are other costs that are involved, but we will talk about that in a few minutes of how you now start to project your costs in terms of your operating cost. Remember that this is just the markup on the material that you are selling based on the raw materials, but you have other costs. You have operating cost, which is about $53,000 a year. So that will now come in terms of your projections to see how many of the shirts do I need to sell to cover both my costs as well as profit margin. So we will also dive into that shortly. So for us to identify our cost, don't forget that we have the operating cost, which is this amount here, about 53,000. The whole idea of this is not to, it's rather to give you an estimate or a projection of what you need to sell. Now we're working under the assumption that we have only one product, which is the Savvy shirt. I know that we'll have several, but for the purpose of this exercise, let's assume we have one shirt. So to actually cover our costs, right? One is that we have the costs. This cost includes only the materials that we use to make one shirt, right? We don't have other costs like our operating expenses. So what I'm going to do is that for us to cover our operating expenses, at least have an idea of what our operating expenses is going to cost us in terms of sales, then we need to put the operating expenses here. So I'm just going to pull this up and put it here, right? And what makes it even more interesting is that it's not based on your selling price, but actually based on your markup that you know how much you need to actually break even. So let's assume that over here, the markup is 70%, which is 9.25. So the actual number of sales or shirts we have to sell will be 53,000 divided by this. That means we have to sell 5,829 shirts. We have to round this up because, yes, 829 or 830 shirts to actually cover our operating costs. So there are two things that can happen here. It's either you reduce your costs or increase your sales and things like that. So for example, if we increase our margin to, let's say, 100% here, and don't forget we have our competitor pricing, so we still have a good range. So you can see that we have to sell fewer shirts, 4,080. So that's how this works, and we will make a full projection of what our sales should be. I have taken the liberty of creating other products. So, for example, we have the Savvy shirt, suit, t-shirt, kaftan, and formal kaftan. And with this, I'm going to create sort of different price points for them. And with that, we can look at what we can possibly sell as well as make. So you can see here that the Savvy suit costs about $32, while the t-shirt is 8.65. Short kaftan is 19 and the long kaftan is 25. So we'll jump into the breakdown of the setting of the prices. As you can see, we have our cost markup. This is wrong spelling. So this is actually markup. Same thing, but just the amount and the selling price. So over here, we will do the same thing going on for all the other clothing items under our store. Now we have set up the markup and prices for each of the items very, very simply, and we have an idea of the selling price. Mind you, this didn't happen just in isolation. Yes, we've set the margins, but also we've benchmarked it with competitors. So I've gone ahead to do more research on competitors, and you can see we have the different items from suits, kaftans of 5 competitors in the market. And based on that, I've been able to come up with my price point that I feel will work very well for me. So with all this information available to me, I now know that on average, some items price points, the markups are significantly higher than the others. But interestingly, in the sales space, you find out that some of these margins are around 50%, based on 50% of the cost of material. And by the time you add up the operating costs and everything into the business, you find out that those margins may just significantly drop to around 25 or 30% thereabout, which is usually the standard markup. So with that said, I will also add another sheet to show you what your possible sales projections can be and how many of those items you can sell. With this, you can sort of project to see, hey, this is what I'm going to sell. These are the number of items I need to sell to break even as a business, and what have you. But we are working based on 5 items in our store. Sometimes most of us have more than 5 items that we sell, and the price points are at different points. Welcome back. So I have prepared a sales projection of how we're going to sell. So for example, I've broken it down into months from month 1 all the way to month 12. So you can see that the Savvy shirt, we'll have to look at the price point and how many sales do we project to make in a month. So for example, I can say the Savvy shirt is this, and I do a quick check on my cost and pricing. Remember that this is my selling price. And I will now say, okay, in my first month, I expect to sell 3 shirts. That means I will generate revenue of about $78. And it will go on and on all the way till the end of the year. And I'll see what price point I'm selling. I mean, price point will stay the same, and maybe quantity will continue to grow. So I'll just do a quick breakdown of that. Okay, so we're done, and you can see that we've made total sales, and this is a breakdown of the sales. As you can see, we're going to make about, in a year, we're going to make 269 sales, generating roughly about $7,000. This can change. These are just projections saying that these are the number that I need to sell. However, it may be higher, it may be lower, or it may be almost exact, but it's never exact. So that's a summary of it, and I'll do same for all the other products. We are done with the projections. You can see that we have a summary of what we're going to sell on all the product lines over a period of 12 months, starting from month 1 all the way to month 12. As you can see, I've calculated I need to sell 230 shirts, and I'll generate about $53,000. All in all, will generate a total income of $216,000 in the first 12 months by selling all these items. Now, the interesting thing about all this is that we can always go back to change our price by adjusting the markup. We can also adjust prices as we go, but this will give us a projection of what we can possibly generate as a business. One really cool feature that we have on Delali is that you can set the margins on your prices of your items. So if we come here and we add an item, so for example, we have Savvy shirt, and we can put in all our details. You can select the category of which shirts. You can come here and set the price. So let's say the cost price is 300. We can set a selling price of 400, and you see that it automatically calculates the profit margin. Easily you can say, oh no, I want 50% margin, and it automatically calculates the price. So this is something that you can use very, very easily for pricing your products and services to make sure that you have the right price and margins for them. It's a wrap. We've reached the end of the session, and we've been able to learn about how to get our cost, how to do market research, and most importantly, choosing the right strategy in building our pricing. As a way of saying a big thank you for reaching the end of this session, we're sharing a free template which you can download. It has all the calculations and strategies that we used for this session. Download it, use it, and let us know what you think. I hope it helps in improving your pricing strategies. And there's more. You get a big discount on 1-year subscription to Delali, so check it out. Finally, we'd love to hear your feedback. So please share with us on our socials, or you can join our Delali community on WhatsApp. Good luck, and may your business be successful.